Hi, Rob. Today we're going to be talking all things Premier League left backs. So I'm going to kick us off with a little trivia question being, can you tell me which left back in the Premier League has got the most assists ever?
Most assists in the Premier League. Part of me wants to go with like an older boy, like maybe an Ashley Cole. But I have a naughty feeling that Andy Robertson just overtook whoever it was. I have a feeling that that might have happened recently. So I'm gonna go Robertson.
You're clever. You're too clever for me. It is Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson has the most assists of any left back in the Premier League, and the player he overtook was Leighton Baines from Everton.
Ah,
So yeah, I thought you'd find that interesting. Anyway, going into it, the question I have for you today is there a shortage of quality left backs in the Premier League?
I don't think so personally. I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of players who are good at left back, but I think the problem that's come in now is that you're not looking at left backs anymore. You're looking at left wing backs. Realistically, that's what people want. And throughout time, you don't have like a surplus of left wing backs because it's a very difficult position. You have to have ridiculous stamina. You have to have the most stamina on the team. You have to have the ability of a winger to be able to put the ball in and be creative. But you also don't get the luxury of being a winger where if you miss a tackle, you've got someone backing you up. Like most of the time, if you miss a tackle, that guy is running 40, 50 yards to the byline if you're playing at left back. So no, when I look at it, you look at guys like Udogi. I think the only one I would potentially say in the top six that don't have a quality left back would be Man City, and it's I people are going to go what at that, but the reason I say this is because I don't consider any of them really left backs. They're more left centre backs to cover Stones running off into the midfield. But overall, I don't think there's a lack of left backs. I think the problem is that the left back position has evolved to a ridiculous point.
Yeah, one thing you did forget to mention about what makes it harder to find left backs now, or just it's always been a problem, but one of the criteria to be a left back is you have to be left footed. And obviously, there's a lot less left footed players globally. And so you've seen that problem in other areas of the pitch, which we'll get into later. But ultimately, I'm annoyed because I agree with you and everything you said that there's actually a lot of good left backs. And I was hoping you would say no, that the left backs now are much weaker than they were 5, 10 years ago. And where I was going to go with that is I actually went and researched what the left backs were sort of in the last 10 years, to say 2015, 2016, and that kind of area. At Man City at that time, you had Gail Clichy and Kolarov. At Arsenal, you had Nacho Monreal and you had Kieran Gibbs. At Man United, I think you still had Luke Shaw, funny enough, because I think he's been there for 10 seasons. So amusingly, it was still Luke Shaw. And so then Liverpool was Moreno, Alberto Moreno. And I'm trying to think who now Tottenham would have had at left back at that point. Anyway, Chelsea actually that season in the 2015-2016 season, I think only had Nathan Ake as their only left back option. So my point being that when you look back at that, it's not actually like you're looking back and going, yeah, Ashley Cole and Marcelo or those level of left backs and going, wow, it was much better then. When I look back and I look now, I actually thought it's at least the same, if not better now. But I do agree with you is that the sort of left back position has progressed. You got two options. You got the left wing back version up and down the line, maybe Robertson, and you have to be so technically good. But then you've got that inverted fullback, which has just become more and more popular in modern day Premier League and football in general. So you got players like Zinchenko and Cancelo where they come into midfield. They just have to be more technical players. The problem I'm seeing with that, which I do think is leading to a bit of a shortage in left backs, you got two sides to the left back. Either you're a brilliant one-on-one defender or a brilliant defender, but then often at the moment you're going to shoehorned into left centre back, or you're a brilliant offensive player, and then you're going to do sort of the Gareth Bale soccer thing and end up at right wing and cutting inside on your left foot. So it's actually you don't want to be too good at attacking because you go off into. I mean, you would want to play wing. I'm just saying you'll go off and play wing. And if you're too good at defending, you'll probably end up in centre back, and that creates so a kind of a unique situation for the left backs.
Yeah, I think we're in a weird kind of football manager simulation, to be honest. It's one of those, you just trying to find a left back who's got ridiculous stats in everything. And unfortunately that's just not how it works in real life. Where you're not gonna find a bloke got who's one of the best crosses in the league, also able to play a pass, also able to one-on-one defend, also able to win a header. Like that's just you're never going to see a player like that. And I think unfortunately the problem you have at the moment with the left backs is like you said, because generally left back has to be a left-footed player. You have a shadow pool to deal with already, and then as soon as you show any kind of attacking intent, with the way managers are looking at players at the moment, you want to have that right wing who cuts inside. And if you've only got two left-footed players, you probably want one of them on that right wing. That's just how football's developing. Um, and yeah, I do think that you're running out of players to play left back, to be honest. And Newcastle are kind of an example of it, where you've shoehorned Dan Burn into left back, where he had one fantastic season. He was a kind of a local hero, absolutely loved by everyone. Everyone was really stoked. And then last season, he didn't have a great season left back, and it was just the thing of unfortunately, got a bit found out. They went, we're just going to put our fastest man up against Dan Burn, and he has to foul him. All he can do really. But then Newcastle had their couple of injuries, played in centre back, and you realise actually Dan Burn is a very, very, very good defender. Who's just unfortunately, because he's one of the few defensive-minded left-footed players Newcastle had to play left back. So I do think that you are running the risk of limiting left back options by having all these left-footed players shoehorned into inverted roles.
Where this all actually started for me was I was thinking about at Arsenal, you've got Saka, and I was thinking Arsenal have just been lucky, frankly, in the last 3 years. He hasn't had a major injury with the amount of football that he's played. Statistically, you probably would have expected him to have more major injuries than he's had. Maybe they're still coming. I hope not. But where are you going to find a left-footed right wing who would be a good backup for Saka in terms of quality, globally at the minute? Because there's just not a lot of them around that you could buy for, let's say, I'm going to say around 50 million. When you start talking about 100 million, a lot of players become available. But in that 50 million mark, it feels like there's just this huge shortage. And to what you were saying, a lot of those players have been pulled from left back into right wing just out of necessity of players, really. And that's creating a shortage, I feel like, at both ends of the field.
Yeah, I do agree. I think there's kind of an obsession at the moment with creating it's a Pep Guardiola obsession of making sure you have as many people in the middle of the park as possible. You look back at Barcelona, and Lionel Messi used to drop back into the middle of the park, and now he's got his inverted fullback that goes in the middle of the park, and now you've got John Stones, a centre back, that goes in the middle of the park, and then before Haaland, they had the false nine who went back in the middle of the park. He wants 11 blokes. To be honest, if he could put Allison in the middle, he would put Allison in the middle. Like, that's the kind of manager he is. Not Allison, Edison, sorry. If he could put Edison in the middle, he would put Edison in the middle. That's just the kind of manager he is. That's now been adopted by a lot of different managers. And I always say this, but football is swings and roundabouts. It will swing one way and it has to swing the other way, because what will happen is Anthony Gordon is probably going to be a great example in the next couple of years. If he carries on with the form and ability that he's showing, because he is a left-footed left winger. Like, that's what he is. He can't really play on the right. He's not fantastic because he doesn't cut in very well. He can do it, but it's not his strength. His strength is beating a man on the outside with pace and banging a ball into the box. And I think in 2 or 3 seasons, if he carries on with the form that he has, you're going to end up in situations where you can't put your inverted wing back against him. You can't put your left back as an inverted fullback, because he will burn you, and he will burn you quick, and it will even itself out. But I do agree, right now there is definitely a shortage of players, and it's because of this obsession with having players in the middle of the park, players who can cut in, rather than going, you know what, we have Saka, who's fantastic and he plays the way he plays, and we can't find anyone. No one's going to replace him. There's no point in finding a replacement. You can't find an understudy for the right price. Let's find a right for the winger for the right price. And you've got strikers who can get into the box. get people into the box. Like you don't have to have everyone in midfield to play football.
No, you make some good points. I can't think of another either left-footed left winger or right-footed right winger. None's coming to mind because there's such, as you said, obsession with getting inverted wingers now in every Premier League team. So that will be interesting over the next few seasons if there's a sort of reversal on that trend. Anyway, there's been a interesting discussion back and forth about the left backs in the Premier League. I was hoping you were going to fight me a bit more about the quality of our left backs, but we actually ended up on a similar wavelength. But thanks for listening, guys. If you have a different opinion to us about the left backs in the Premier League, you think they have got better or you think they have got worse in the last 10 seasons, I'd love to hear it. Until then, this has been Football Unspoken.